I knew they never read my commits. That's the only explanation for how I got away with it for 11 months. 11 quiet, coffee-stained months of nodding at pointless stand-ups, submitting my weekly updates 3 days late, and letting my name float like mildew at the bottom of the team's JIRA board. Claire, always behind. Claire, probably not cut out for agile. Claire, a soft-spoken woman in a sea of ex-frat bros named Dylan, all high-fiving each other over semicolons. No one ever asked why my updates came in late, or how the data pipeline seemed to magically fix itself every time our overnight batch job shit the bed, or how the reports generated for the CFO, clean, filtered, perfectly formatted, always came from unknown system admin. That was me. Every time. Not that they noticed. God forbid they looked. My cubicle was in the far back, third row past the flickering exit sign, under the ceiling tile that smelled like mold when it rained. I liked it that way. Out of sight, out of micromanaged hell. I'd sit there in silence, sipping lukewarm green tea, and pretending to write Python scripts from scratch, while I actually rewrote their entire data infrastructure from the ground up, one cron job at a time. It started small. A stupid CSV merger that used to take Gerald 3 hours every Tuesday. Automated it one weekend out of boredom. Gerald never noticed. Just said, that went faster than usual, and shoved a Slim Jim into his mouth like the taste of mediocrity was somehow comforting. Then came the internal billing logs. Then the compliance parser. Then the data normalizer, which I built as a joke because Trevor, the shiny new manager, once said normalization was just a fancy word for sorting stuff. Every line of code I wrote lived on a separate Git branch, pushed to a local server no one else accessed. ClareLab 001, ClareLab 002. By the time I hit 038, I stopped counting. That server, hidden behind a legacy machine no one touched. They thought it was retired. Hell, I wanted them to think that. To get in, I used a private terminal shortcut masked as a system monitor widget, gray box, no icon, boring enough to be ignored. Double-click, type salt, and I was in. My own world, my real job. Because what I actually did at that company wasn't what they paid me for. They paid me to clean data, click boxes, and attend meetings where Kyle talked over me about how JSON isn't real programming. What I did was write an AI-enhanced orchestration layer that could take raw vendor data, validate it, tag it, route it, generate a usable dashboard before most of the team finished their second donut. And I kept my mouth shut about it, not out of humility, out of strategy, because I knew what this company did to people who looked too clever. I saw them promote loudmouths who broke things just to fix them. I saw them sideline quiet performers who didn't mesh with the culture. Culture, in this place, meant playing ping pong while the servers melted and posting Slack memes while actual problems rotted in the backlog. I was the opposite of culture. I was function, so I played dumb, kept my head down, let them think I was slow. And every time Trevor or Kyle or any of the other face-shouting morons laughed about how Claire's still on ticket 218, I just smiled. Because I knew something they didn't. Only reason ticket 218 existed at all was because my system flagged it. And they had no idea. Trevor blew into the office like a fart in a wind tunnel, loud, unnecessary, and somehow convinced it was charismatic. He wore vests over t-shirts like some kind of Silicon Valley tribute act, had perfect teeth that screamed Invisalign and generational wealth, tossed around words like synergy and leveraging bandwidth like he was getting paid per syllable. From the second he arrived, I knew I was screwed. First day, he did the walk around with HR, giving everyone fake dad handshakes and good to meet yous like we weren't just glorified janitors for the company's data sewage. He reached my desk, back corner, still damp from the weekend leak, and looked at my screen like it was a tray of expired sushi. You must be Claire. Not hi Claire, not nice to meet you, just you must be. Like he was confirming a personnel file marked low output. He squinted at my terminal window, black background, green text, my sanctum, and chuckled. Old school, huh? We'll get you on something a little more modern soon. No need to overcomplicate stuff. I smiled without showing teeth. He moved on, but not really. Trevor was one of those guys who zeroed in on anything he didn't understand and decided it was either a threat or a joke. I wasn't loud. I didn't play foosball. I didn't make TikToks in the break room with Jenna from marketing. So naturally, I became his pet project. A week later, he called a team meeting. not the normal sit-down and yawn kind. This was a stand-up in the lounge area with donuts and vibes kind. He wore his starred-up vest again, sleeves rolled to mid-forearm like he was about to conduct an exorcism. "All right, team," he clapped. "We've got a new initiative from leadership, Project Ripple. Total revamp of our vendor reconciliation system. It's going to be a beast, fast turn, 3 weeks to prototype, 6 to deploy." Everyone clapped like trained seals, except me, because I knew what Project Ripple was. I'd already built half of it. 18 weeks ago, they were still trying to figure out how to install Python 3. But Trevor wasn't interested in the truth. He was interested in optics. He assigned tasks like he was dealing cards. Gave Kyle the lead dev role. Kyle, who once confused JSON with HTML, gave Jenna the testing matrix, even though she thought regex was a yoga pose. "And me, Claire," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "You'll handle documentation. Keep a log of everyone's progress. We need a paper trail." I stared at him. I could build out the ingest pipeline. "I already have," he raised a hand. Raised his fucking hand. Like I was a child interrupting story time. "We're starting fresh," he said. "Don't want to inherit legacy mistakes." Legacy mistakes. That was me, apparently. My ears rang. My pulse throbbed in my jaw. But I smiled, nodded, and opened a fresh Google Doc titled Meeting Notes. I went back to my cube, reopened my terminal, and spun up ClareLab 043. If Trevor wanted a war, I'd give him one. Not with tantrums, not with HR emails or performative Slack messages. With silence, with scripts. Because the one thing Trevor didn't know and never even thought to ask was this: every single legacy mistake his shiny new project depended on was already running, quietly, invisibly, perfectly, behind my command line. It started as a coping mechanism. The first week I joined the company, the vendor data logs looked like someone had fed a blender 30 years of corrupted spreadsheets and hit puree. Nothing was structured, nothing matched, time zones were inconsistent. File names were things like FUK Real New 03 Final Relay XLSX. One even just said God help us PDF. At first, I did it by hand. Pull the data. Run the macros. Comb through it line by line like I was scraping barnacles off the hull of a sinking ship. Every day was a new variety of misery. By the second month, I stopped hoping for change. By the third, I started building my own damn life raft. I called it Echo. Echo wasn't flashy. No React front end. No onboarding UI. Just raw, elegant code written in Python, living in the crawlspace of the company's forgotten dev server. SVR07 Arch. It had no watchers on the Git repo. No pull requests. I kept it locked under a second SSH layer only I knew existed. It began with basic sanitization. Echo would scan incoming vendor files, correct misaligned columns, apply schema logic I'd written myself, and reject files that didn't pass validation. Then it grew smarter. I gave it a natural language layer, rudimentary at first, trained on actual invoice emails, categorize vendors by tone and urgency. I even taught it how to autofill missing tax fields based on historical behavior. Next came formatting. Echo learned how to wrap the clean data into company-approved report templates. Not just basic summaries, full-on, boardroom-polished PDFs with graphs, annotations, projections. The kind our analysts used to spend 3 days building. Echo did it in 20 seconds. I never told anyone. Didn't need to. Instead, I built a mirror world. While they hacked and panicked in the real environment, I deployed Echo in shadow, quietly running the same reports as the official team, cross-checking every result, watching, waiting. Echo never missed. It ran cleaner, faster, more accurately than anything they had in prod. The devs would come into the war room with wrinkled shirts and overcooked coffee breath, bragging about how they finally fixed the SKU merge issue. Meanwhile, it fixed it 9 days earlier. Echo was already routing the corrected format through the internal archive. Sometimes I thought about slipping a report into the main system. Just one, just to see what would happen. But I didn't, because I knew the second they saw what Echo could do, they'd either take credit or shut it down. And besides, watching them drown while I floated 6 inches above the waterline, that was better than credit. Then one Thursday, Trevor sauntered up to my desk, had a la croix in one hand and smugness in the other. "Claire," he said, leaning in, "I noticed you're falling behind again. Think we'll see something usable from you by next week." I minimized my terminal. Behind it, Echo was running 6 recursive test cycles on malformed vendor input. "Of course," I said. He squinted. "What exactly are you working on?" I pointed at a dummy flowchart I kept open for this exact reason. Boxes labeled things like vendor input review node approval gate. Still documenting pipeline logic, I said, monotone. Don't want to miss any legacy dependencies. He smiled like he understood. He didn't. Good, he said. Stick to that. Don't worry about dev stuff. He walked away. I reopened my terminal and typed, run EchoPy shadow log. Echo responded instantly. Status, all systems operational. Output ETA, 0000, 26 seconds later, a pristine financial report blinked onto my screen. Trevor's name was on the approval line. I sipped my tea and let it steep. Let them think I was slow. Let them think I was lost, because I wasn't behind. I was already ahead, so far ahead they couldn't even see me anymore. It happened on a Monday. Because of course it did. The kind of Monday where the coffee machine's out of beans. HVAC is stuck in Arctic tundra, and everyone's pretending to care about sprint goals like we weren't just duct taping code to hit a made-up deadline. Trevor stood at the front of the conference room like he was unveiling the goddamn moon landing. His laptop was hooked to the big screen, which displayed a slide titled Project Ripple Launch Status and Bottlenecks. You can already guess who the bottleneck was. He let the slide hang there for a good 10 seconds. Dramatic pause. Trevor loved a dramatic pause. Let's be honest, he said, pacing like a TED talk failure. This project should have hit QA last week, but we've had setbacks, mainly legacy code that hasn't been transitioned properly. Claire, can you speak to that? Every head turned. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. I just blinked and looked at him like he was a poorly written SQL query. I've submitted all documentation I was assigned, I said calmly. He smiled, tight, performative. Right, but you were also asked to assist with the vendor pipeline. And from what I hear, you've been slow to engage. I wanted to laugh. Really, I did. Slow to engage. I'd built the damn thing from scratch. I had logs, timestamps, output files, and a system that was already silently outperforming their half-baked mess. But none of that mattered, not here. In a company like ours, truth isn't currency, optics are. I didn't look like a hero. I looked like an afterthought. The quiet woman in the corner who never joined happy hour and wrote code like it was Morse code from a bunker. I was told to focus on documentation, I repeated. Trevor nodded, faux sympathetic. And maybe that's the problem. You've been siloed too long, Claire. Maybe this just isn't the right environment for you anymore. There it was. The kill shot. HR was already in the room. Woman from Employee Wellness, Carol or Cheryl, something like that, had been sitting near the back pretending to check her email. Now she perked up, clipboard ready, smile preloaded. We'll take it from here, Trevor, she said, all syrup. I didn't speak, didn't flinch, just stood up slowly while the rest of the team looked everywhere except at me. Kyle stared at his fingernails. Jenna took an incredibly sudden interest in her keyboard. No one said a word. No one asked if this was fair. Some even looked relieved. The thing about being quiet is people think you don't feel betrayal, but I did. I felt every ounce of it, filed it away like bad data, indexed it. They escorted me to HR. The conference room version, with soft chairs and tissues on the table like tears, were part of the exit form. We're going to move forward with termination, Cheryl Carroll said, but you'll receive a standard severance package, provided you sign the NDA. I skimmed the form. Standard clauses. Don't disparage the company. Don't retain proprietary material. Don't mention Project Ripple. I signed, took the check, walked out like a ghost, but not before one final request. Please submit any project files you've been working on, Cheryl Carroll said, just so the team can pick up where you left off. Of course, I said. That night, I uploaded a zip folder labeled Ripple Claire Final. Inside were 4 files, an empty Excel workbook, a corrupted PDF, a PowerPoint of cat memes, a text file that read, good luck. I encrypted it all with a password, let me go. I clicked send. Then I logged into the private server one last time. Ran Echo's cleanup script. Flushed every shadow log, every key, wiped the backups, nuked the repo, all gone. In my final message to Trevor, I wrote only one sentence. I trust you'll manage fine without me. I meant it because now I wasn't just leaving. I was taking the future with me. The morning after they cut me loose, I woke up at 9:43. No alarm, no Slack pings, no calendar invites titled Touch Base or Quick Sync that somehow devoured an hour and a half. Just silence. For the first time in years, I could hear the world again, the hum of my fridge, birds outside the window, My own breathing, not timed to sprint cycles or bug reports. Made tea, real tea, not the watery crap from the break room Keurig. I watched it steep without refreshing my inbox even once. Then I powered up my laptop and began the purge. VPN credentials, gone. Encrypted shell keys, deleted. Access tokens, revoked. Echo, still alive, but now in cold storage, zipped, duplicated, sitting on an offline SSD inside a fireproof box in my hall closet. The company's server, I left it clean. Empty. Not malicious, not vengeful, just absent. Like I was never there. My old terminal shortcut, the invisible widget masked a system monitor. I dragged it to the corner of my screen, hovered for a moment, then clicked remove. No ceremony, just closure. And then I opened a browser window and typed, Freelance Tech Consultant Enterprise Automation. Every site that popped up looked like it had been designed by someone's cousin in 2013. But it didn't matter. I wasn't looking for flash. I was looking for freedom. I registered a new domain, Claire Jensenio. I kept it simple. I help companies do more with less by building systems that don't break. Underneath, I added, workflow automation, data pipeline optimization, custom reporting engines, technical strategy, consulting, no fluff, no testimonials, just proof. I posted anonymized benchmarks from Echo, latency drops, error reduction, port turnaround times, real numbers, the kind that speak louder than LinkedIn recommendations. By noon, my first cold email was sent. By 3, I'd written 5 proposals. By 7, I was drinking Pinot Noir and watching Contact on Netflix like it was sacred text. And somewhere, back in that fluorescent mausoleum they called an office, everything was starting to break. Of course, they didn't realize it at first. The scripts I'd handed over didn't do anything. There was no pipeline, just placeholder macros and broken formulas. But bureaucracies don't fail with a bang. They rot slowly, like fruit on a shelf. Their first clue came 2 days later. A junior dev posted in the #Ripple Engineering Slack channel, anyone know why the vendor reports are blank today? Tried rerunning ingest, nothing's processing. No response. Then, Trevor said Claire had it covered. She's gone now. Did anyone get her notes? Followed by, what system was she even using? Silence. They'd built an entire launch plan around code no one understood, running on infrastructure no one had touched, because I had touched it, because I was it. By the time they started realizing they'd been flying without a pilot, I was already outlining service tiers for my new consulting site. Basic automation package at $15K. Custom integration suite at $45K. A little bold, maybe, but so was building their entire system behind their backs. I didn't need revenge. Not yet. All I needed was distance. A view of the wreckage from somewhere quiet. I poured another glass of wine and refreshed their public Git repo. Last commit 4 days ago. Quick fix for ingest errors, please work. It didn't, and I didn't say a word. It took 5 days for the cracks to show. 10 for them to splinter. 2 weeks and the walls were bleeding. From the outside, probably looked like business as usual. But inside the company's internal systems, there was chaos dressed up in khakis, manual file merges, broken formulas, CSVs uploaded with missing headers, corrupted metadata that no one could trace. By day 12, the daily vendor reports went from pristine to patchwork. Formatting errors, totals off by thousands, wrong dates, duplicate entries. Kyle, now somehow leading the dev team, started patching things like he was playing whack-a-mole with a blindfold. Every fix broke something else. Every new solution came with a frantic Slack thread that ended in, "Does anyone remember what Claire was doing here?" But of course, no one did, because no one ever asked. Trevor, meanwhile, kept insisting nothing was wrong. Just some transitional hiccups, he said during the Monday stand-up. Claire's stuff wasn't usable anyway. Legacy spaghetti. Legacy spaghetti. I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw the transcript someone leaked to me. But the real fun started when IT opened their mouths. Buried deep in a Jira comment thread, probably not meant for wider eyes, was this nugget. We noticed a deactivated process, tagged Claire Utils, was running nightly with elevated permissions. It was pushing to the same output path our current tools are using. Might explain the sudden failures post-termination. Boom. The truth was starting to sweat through the walls. Of course, Trevor downplayed it. Just some old automation artifact. We've moved beyond that. He hadn't. He just had no idea what that even was. Then it happened. My inbox pinged. From Trevor Keating at company name subject. Quick question reporting structure, no greeting. No context. Just this, Hey Claire, super quick. You remember where the ingest script archived historical vendor files before upload? Can't find the backup path. Let me know. THX. He sent it from his personal Gmail 5 minutes later. Then a follow-up an hour after that. Hey, sorry to bother again. One of the QA guys said you had a background process that cleaned the merge queue. If that's something you left behind, can you tell us how to re-enable it? No apology. No ownership. Just a guy digging in the rubble and realizing the house was made of ghost bones and duct tape. I didn't answer, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't owe him a damn thing. I closed the tab, went back to working on a client demo, my first paying prospect, a mid-sized logistics firm trying to untangle their inventory pipeline. They wanted faster reporting, cleaner data. They had no idea what they needed, but I did. I was building them something better than Echo, modular, lighter, smarter. And while I spun up that new system, I let Trevor sweat. Let him pretend it was all under control while his devs screamed into the void and QA tried to duct tape KPIs back together. Satisfaction didn't come from payback. Not yet. It came from knowing the collapse had already begun. And they still hadn't realized I was the only thing that ever held it together. The first truly desperate email came on a Sunday at 3:11 a.m. Subject line, urgent please respond. Claire, really need your help. If you have any version of the ingest script or vendor formatter from your time here, please send it over. We're hitting major delays and don't have a working replacement. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something to get us through. We can compensate you for your time. Let's talk. I read it while eating toast in bed. Didn't even bother to open the body, just hovered over the preview pane and watched him unravel one subject line at a time. By Tuesday, he was offering hourly rates. We can loop you in as a short-term external consultant. No pressure, just need the framework for that background process you wrote. Our team's happy to integrate it from there. No pressure. By Friday, the board was asking questions. Apparently, the new fully rebuilt Ripple engine had missed 3 financial summaries in a row. Clients were threatening penalties. One of the company's oldest vendors flagged their report as unusable. Internally, morale cratered. Devs were working weekends. QA had started logging what they called phantom errors, bugs that couldn't be replicated, only watched in horror as they devoured clean inputs. Then someone did the one thing Trevor prayed no one would. They actually read the code. A junior QA analyst, God bless whoever it was, line by line on the last functional report before I left. Found a callout buried inside a formatting class. From Claire Udel's import sanitize vendor headers, there it was, in black and white. A direct import from my private module. The funny part? The devs had been running my scripts without realizing it. Echo had been calling itself recursively through scheduled tasks, quietly patching gaps in their junk code skeleton. When I wiped it all, the whole illusion collapsed. Whisper started threading its way through the office. She didn't just write code, she was the code. And then came the ping, LinkedIn. A message from someone I didn't recognize. Display name, Michael L. Profile, QA Analyst Roman 2, company name. Hey Claire, don't mean to overstep, but people here are freaking out. They're trying to patch everything, but no one knows how it worked. I found your module. Just wanted to say I'm sorry for how they treated you. It's messed up. No ask, no pitch, just honesty. That one I replied to. Thanks, Michael. I know, stay sane in there. Then I logged into Claire Gensenio, clicked edit, and updated the tagline. It used to say, I help companies do more with less. Now it read, now offering enterprise workflow automation. For when your old systems finally give out. I added a new section to the homepage, specializing in vendor data optimization pipeline engineering human-free reporting systems post-crisis automation recovery. Didn't name names. Didn't have to. By nightfall, I had 4 new contact form submissions. One from a fintech startup in Boston, one from a shipping firm in Austin, one from a former competitor of my old company, and one with no name, just a Gmail and a message. We saw what happened. We're listening. Cold amusement bloomed in my chest. Let them sweat. Let them dig through backups and guess at logic they never bothered to learn. I wasn't hiding anymore. Now I was available. The message came in through my site's contact form, buried between 2 spam offers for offshore dev teams and one laughably bad pitch about turning my automation into an NFT. But this one was different. Subject, your GitHub, potential collaboration opportunity from CTO at Vanderton Analytics.com. Hi Claire, I came across your GitHub portfolio after a colleague flagged your CLI parser repo. Elegant stuff. One thing led to another, and I landed on your site. We're building out a new automation framework for vendor intake and internal reporting. It's early, and we're cautious about scaling too fast without the right foundation. I'd love to hop on a quick call if you're open to consulting. We're not looking for magic, just something that works. Best, Elliot F. No buzzwords, no rockstar ninja disruptor nonsense. Just honest curiosity and a clear pain point. I replied within the hour. We set up a call the next morning. Elliot showed up on Zoom with a t-shirt, a whiteboard behind him full of tangled arrows and boxes labeled WTF is this? And fix this or die. Walked me through their existing mess, half-built ETL pipelines stitched together by junior contractors, JSON logs crashing every third run, Excel reports exported manually by their ops lead at 2 a.m. I listened, took notes, asked questions that made his dev lead's eyebrows jump. Then I pitched them Echo's baby cousin, stripped down, containerized, no frills, no magic. Just clean, repeatable ingestion, schema validation, and one-button reporting. 36 hours later, I had a contract. $12,500 retainer for phase 1. $8K per sprint after that. No corporate email, no NDA leash, just code, delivery, and results. I signed, didn't even blink. That same day, a little bird from my old company, Michael L., the QA guy, slid into my inbox again. Trevor's gone. Word is he's on investigative leave pending a board audit. Apparently some investors are pissed. There's a rumor he used your work in the pitch deck and called it his. I laughed out loud. Actually laughed. A full, body-shaking release I hadn't felt in years. Of course he did. Of course, the man who wouldn't let me touch real dev tasks had no problem copy-pasting my code into a slideshow once he realized it worked better than anything his team produced. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. That used to be the fuel, watching him panic, watching the team scramble to replicate a ghost system they never respected. Now the fuel was purpose. I had clients, I had clarity, I had something real to build. Vanderton gave me access to a clean repo, full decision-making authority on architecture, and a weekly check-in where Elliot asked only one question: what do you need to go faster? That night, I spun up a fresh module. Not Echo, something new. I named it Spectra. As the build logs filled the screen, quiet and beautiful in mine, I realized something. Trevor had tried to erase me, minimize me, box me in as the legacy problem. But all he'd done, his condescension, his sabotage, his ignorance, was sharpen the blade. He didn't bury me, he polished me, and now I was cutting through everything. It came in like a ghost. No subject line, no signature, just a plain text whisper in my inbox at 6:43 p.m. on a Thursday. From Trevor Keating at gmail.com message, where are the backups? Please, the board is asking. That was it, no hi Claire. No sorry for the humiliation, the gaslighting, the erasure. Just desperation, stripped bare of ego and veneers. 4 words and a panic return. And for the first time, he finally sounded honest. I didn't reply, didn't even mark it as read. Instead, moved the window aside and refreshed the page I'd had open for the past 20 minutes. Vanderton Analytics livestream, platform launch event. There it was, polished stage, soft blue uplighting. A modest crowd seated in sleek chairs arranged with startup feng shui. The camera cut to the CEO, Elliot, who stepped onto the platform with the easy confidence of someone who didn't have to bluff his way through a technical demo. He spoke for a while. Thanked the investors, thanked the core dev team. Then came the part that mattered. And finally, he said, pausing with a smile, we couldn't have launched this platform on time under budget, and with a functional pipeline that's already processing at triple our previous capacity, without outside help. So I want to thank the person who architected the very foundation we're running on today. The camera panned to a screen behind him. My logo. Simple. Clean. Claire Jensen Consulting. Continued, Claire doesn't work in a tower. She doesn't throw buzzwords. She just builds things that don't break. And when you're trying to scale fast and not fall on your face, that's what matters. The audience applauded, not wildly, just enough, the right kind. I leaned back on my couch, wine in hand. Syrah. Not because it paired well with anything, because it was the bottle I bought the day I signed the Vanderton deal and promised myself I'd only open it when it felt done. This was done. No fireworks, no gotcha, no dramatic mic drop, just the quiet satisfaction of watching a better machine hum while the old one collapsed in on itself. In a folder labeled Old Life, my final log sat archived and encrypted, untouched since the day I walked out of that beige-tiled hell. Echo, decommissioned. Claire Udel's pie, obsolete. The entire system, rewritten in my own language for people who knew how to listen. Somewhere, in a boardroom filled with red-faced men and panicked whispers, Trevor was likely pacing. Sweating, maybe even pointing fingers. Where are the backups? There were never backups. Only me. And now I belong to no one. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.